tough weekend for Max Holloway, to say the absolute least. You know, he got dominated from the get-go. Truthfully, personally, I was not surprised, though. I know many people are. I picked Charles Oliveira. I thought it was going to be over quick, though. So the only part that was quite surprising to me was actually how well he defended against Oliveira's submissions. I really did think once the fight got to the ground, it would be over quick. But he had a little bit of a Michael Chandler-esque performance where the fight actually got to the ground. He did a good job defending, just was completely and utterly unable to get up off the ground. I mean, he didn't get up once. I guess in the last round he got away, but through 5 rounds, I mean, over 20 minutes of control time, just defending with Charles Oliveira on his back. That part was impressive, and I'll give him credit where credit's due. That was impressive. That's really tough to do, you know, coming from someone who's grappled, not to their level, of course, but it's tough to do if you have someone on your back for that long of a time, just to continue fighting hands and fighting off the submissions. It's tough to do. The crazy part, though, I think, which really surprised a lot of people, was the fact that he was losing on the feet as well. You know, he got outstruck almost 2-1. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I'm sure it was 50 significant strikes to Charles Oliveira to 26 for Max Holloway. He was getting pieced up on the feet, which a little bit surprising how kind of shocked he looked. I think at the power of Charles Oliveira. You know, we've seen Max Holloway now once officially get knocked out by Ilia Topuria, but even when Ilia Topuria hit him, besides the knockout shot, it didn't look like he hurt him the way that it looked like Charles Oliveira's punches were hurting him. Like, it looked like, especially in that last exchange, when Charles hit him with that right hand, he just looked like shocked. Like, what is it? He's got lead in his gloves. It was quite nuts. To really see the effect that Charles's punches were having on him. We know that Charles hits hard. That's not a shock. We've heard Justin Gaethje say that he's the hardest hitting fighter that he's ever fought. And Justin's fought, you know, Max. He's fought Dustin. He's fought tons of fighters who hit hard. But to hear that about Charles, that's crazy. And then you could see it in this fight. You know, moving forward, though, it's a bit of a tough spot for Max Holloway because, you know, if he would have beaten Charles Oliveira, he would have been right there for a title shot or a number one contender fight with Arman Tsarukyan. Now Charles Oliveira's in that spot where I think they should make Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan the rematch, and whoever wins that would be getting the rightful title shot against Ilia Topuria. Or Justin Gaethje, whoever wins that fight. But obviously at this point we're leaning towards Ilia Topuria finishing him. And that's not that it's out of this world for Gaethje to beat him, but I would just think it's unlikely at this point in Gaethje's career to have that happen. But looking forward for Max Holloway, you know, there's a couple options about what could be next. The lightweight division, you know, there's a lot of fights booked. We've got, like I said, Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje. We have Mateusz Gamrot versus was it BSD? And then Ruffy Chandler. I would personally, especially with how this last performance went, I would love to see Max Holloway versus Paddy Pimblett. And hear me out. You know, yes, Max Holloway just struggled a lot with the grappling. You know, he got controlled on the ground. He defended the submissions well, though. But so, you know, I think if he wants to get himself back up towards the title shot, which I think in this point in his career, I think he's still viable to do that. He's not that old yet. He's still in his mid to young 30s. Like, you know, obviously he's been around the UFC forever. It's just because he started when he was like 20. I think this is the fight to make, and I think he could have a somewhat relatively quick turnaround as well. Maybe like a July or something like that. You know, Paddy Pimblett, yes, very good grappler. He really is. He's a good grappler. However, not even in the realm of similarity to Charles Oliveira, especially in the takedowns. You know, with Charles Oliveira, for the longest time in his career, that was his big struggle, was he was unable to get people to the ground. You know, he was, when they got to the ground, he was phenomenal. He's always been phenomenal. But as of recent, Charles Oliveira has improved his takedowns drastically. Paddy Pimblett is kind of at that point where Charles Oliveira was in the takedown realm, where he really, really struggles to get the takedowns. We saw that against Justin Gaethje, who historically does not have the best takedown defense. I would say Max Holloway actually has better takedown defense than Justin Gaethje. Obviously, Paddy Pimblett on the ground is very good. Nowhere near whatsoever to where Charles Oliveira is, especially in the aspect of control. Like Charles Oliveira is able to, he cinches up that body lock and or that body triangle, you are unable to go anywhere. Paddy Pimblett is not to that level. I think getting Max Holloway, give him a couple months off, get him back in there relatively quickly against, Paddy Pimblett's still a giant name in the division. If he can go out there and finish or just dominantly put a beat down on Paddy Pimblett, I think that puts him right back up there. I really think it does, especially considering the fact that Paddy Pimblett's base is grappling. He can show improvement in the grappling aspect if he can stuff Paddy Pimblett's takedowns and just put a beating him on the feet. I think this is the fight to make for Max Holloway. It opens up a lot of doors too. If he can beat Paddy Pimblett maybe worse than Justin Gaethje did, he's putting himself right up there against maybe the loser. So I think personally that Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan should fight. Maybe the loser of them two. I don't know about that, but I think this is the fight to make right now, with Paddy Pimblett coming off a loss against Justin Gaethje, and Max Holloway coming off a loss off of Charles Oliveira, to really kind of show that for Paddy Pimblett in himself that he can strike with someone that has good striking, because against Justin Gaethje, who himself looks kind of sloppy, just beat up Paddy Pimblett, and then and Max Holloway show that he can grapple with someone that's an elite grappler in the division, which Paddy Pimblett is, besides his takedowns. So I think this is actually a really good matchup for Max Holloway, with all those things considered. And I would like to see this next. Like I said, maybe in like a July fight card, middle of the summer. Give him a little bit of time to recover, work on his game a little bit. But truthfully, I don't think he needs to improve that much from his current state to beat Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett is not Charles Oliveira. I saw a lot of people dogging on Max Holloway because he got his black belt after the fight. And my thing is, like, I guess a lot of people don't really know this, but like, there's a very good chance that he was going to get it anyways. And we've seen this before. Like, Alex Pereira got his black belt after a fight where he didn't grapple at all, but he's just probably going to get it anyways. Max Holloway was probably going to get it anyways. And also, he did phenomenal defending against the submissions. Like, 99.9% of the UFC in themselves is not doing that well defending against Charles Oliveira's submissions. We've seen time and time again, Charles Oliveira, just in his last fight against Mateusz Gamrot. Gamrot's a better grappler than Max Holloway, pure grappler, and he got submitted by Charles Oliveira. So what does that say about Max Holloway's grappling? His defensive grappling, at least, is very good. But yeah, overall, I just think this is a fight that needs to be made on Max Holloway's side. And then Charles Oliveira's side, I would love to see him rematch Arman Tsarukyan. I think that needs to be done. I think the first fight was insanely close. I think it genuinely could have gone either way. When I first watched it, in time since then, I've given it to Charles Oliveira. I thought he did more. So I'd like to see that for him as well. But let me know if you guys think this is a good fight. And I appreciate you guys watching. Have a good day.